So I'd asked John to give a short form of my introduction, and he ended up, doing the long form. But good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Every time I come here, I feel like the room gets a little bigger, the size gets bigger. So someone was telling me that we are 30% bigger this year than last year. And hopefully you guys can feel it, right? The GRC Summit is actually picking up momentum, and this is our fourth. And I love the excitement and energy this conference begins. And this is just the start today, but we have a packed agenda of a lot of very good content throughout the 2 days. So I'm looking forward to the discussions, the learnings, and the conversations, and meeting you all. So let's get started. So I thought what I'll do is, I was here a year back, last year, November, and those were exciting days. I remember we were literally a day before US elections. I don't know if some of you guys were there that day, right? And we were listening and talking, but we were also watching what's happening in the world news. In that comparison, today is a little bit bland, boring day, so we'll be able to concentrate on the agenda here a little bit better. But I had made 3 promises at the time, and I want to just recount those 3 promises and see how well we have done. The first thing I had talked about was that we truly want to innovate in the cloud as a company. And cloud is fundamentally important for how GRC software and technology ought to be consumed. And I have to tell you that over the last year, as a company, we have made significant strides in being able to deliver and deploy applications in the cloud in an effective manner, especially in a world where security is so paramount important now. So our architecture, which allows us to be what I call safe and secure and multi-instance, is now pervasively deployed. 75% plus of our customers are actually leveraging our cloud now. So that's a good report card from where we were just a year back. And if you look at M7, the software that you're going to hear a lot about, it is natively built on the cloud. So you're going to see a lot of optimizations that really brings cloud to the forefront over the last year. So that was the first promise we had made as a company, as an industry. We want to leverage the power of the cloud for the world of GRC. The second thing which we had focused on and promise we had made was, how do we think about raising the bar on quality in everything that we do in the world of GRC? And quality is not an easy thing, because we as risk professionals, compliance and governance professionals, we have to raise our own standards by which we govern ourselves, whether it's the software that we build, whether it's implementations that we make, or also programs and processes that we put in place. So how do we raise our own quality? And that was my kind of conversation that we had a year back. And I feel as an industry, as a company, we've made significant strides in that over the last year. Within Metricstream, all of the different departments, whether it's engineering, our professional services and support, number of organizations have rallied behind the whole quality theme. And we actually conducted a survey, and we actually went out to many of you in the room, but also our customers globally, and we saw almost a 30-point improvement in our customer sat and customer success and quality score over the prior year. And this is something which is going to be an important theme for us, because we want to make sure that we are actually listening to our customers very intently, and that's why quality matters. And I would urge you to think about from your own lens, as you look at your customers, whether they're internal customers and stakeholders, or whether they're external customers, that you actually think about what is the customer success score and how is that actually improving and enhancing year over year. So that was the second promise. The third focus area and promise that we had talked about was, how do we truly enable IT organizations and partner organizations? And I'll tell you, we've now trained dozens and dozens of organizations globally who are building their entire GRC practice on Metricstream. So many of them are here. Actually, a lot of people are actually in the audience here in terms of firms like PwC and KPMG who are building their practice. But across the globe, many smaller firms are also building their GRC practice on Metricstream now. Over the last year, we probably have trained over 1,000 professionals who are now trained on Metricstream. And that's a big achievement in just a short 1 year, where we have actually trained people to be able to deliver and deploy GRC and Metricstream at your enterprises. So that's been the scorecard on the three things that I talked about: focusing on the cloud, the idea of raising the bar on quality, and then truly enabling partner ecosystems around Metricstream. And overall, as I look at the company, as I look at Metricstream, I feel the last 12 months has been an amazing journey in terms of how we have raised our bar on our overall business execution. And a lot of that has been a function of not just the vision or the strategy that we have had in thinking about GRC, but also the way we are assembling the talent in the company. And this is an area which I feel we are bringing together the best-in-class talent wherever we can, and clearly we have work ahead of us to be able to do more of that. So our execution is moving in the right direction over the last 12 months. In fact, coincidentally, today, we are just announcing a very significant capital investment from one of the largest private equity groups and one of the most renowned private equity groups called Clearlake Capital, raising $65 million, and you'll see a press release come out later in the day today. And this financing is really to support our continued R&D investments, more innovation, more focus on customer support and global expansion and go-to-market. But Clearlake is one of the notable private equity firms based out of Santa Monica, California. But also, the round of financing comes also from the Singapore Economic Development Board to really give us understanding and leverage in Asian markets and regions. So as a company, we are continuing to strengthen and invest more. And that is really one of the exciting part of what we're doing at Metricstream here. Our idea here is whatever we've done over the last 15 years together as Metricstream has come to this point, I feel it's still just the beginning. The next 5-10 years are going to be really exciting in terms of how we build more innovation, take GRC to the next level, and what internally I call about is really bringing the world of intelligence and risk intelligence together with the GRC framework. So while we've been busy doing all this execution and talking about Metricstream, I wanted to take a quick pause and reflect back at the last year at a macro level, all the things that have happened. So if you recall, last year, just a year back when we were here, the presidential election was going to happen the next day. And if we had asked that time, probably not one hand would have been raised here as to who would be the US president. So that was a big surprise. Brexit had happened last year as well, and that was, again, a big news item there. But you look at the geopolitical side, right? When what's going on the issues in North Korea, for example, you never know how it's going to play out. You look at what's going on the global climate side, the amount of devastations and natural devastations that have happened over the last few months is pretty alarming at some level. So you look at, again, the regulatory climates, and today we're talking about things like GDPR and cybersecurity, the kinds of breaches that are coming together. All of these disruptions are very uniquely coming together at the same time. You talk to CEOs in boardrooms across the globe, from United States to Europe to Asia, anywhere in the world, the focus and conversation around security and leaks are front and center. We just had the Equifax debacle where 150 million Social Security IDs and information was leaked out. But quietly at the same time, I just heard that SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission of the United States, who are supposed to be the regulators, they themselves got hacked. So it's a very difficult and different situation that we are dealing with. So what does this mean for GRC professionals and board members and shareholders and employees and professionals to think about how to deal with this kind of information and environment that we are in? So I feel like there are a couple of trends that are emerging here. First and foremost, the trend that's really kind of in front of us is what I call the age of the customer. And I come back to this whole notion of the voice of the customer. In all the things that we do, we have to bring our customers into the forefront. So traditionally, when you think about GRC has kind of focused on risk compliance and governance, and customers are kind of sitting in another area of the organization. we need to bring GRC practices right where it focuses to bringing the voice of the customer within GRC itself. So customers and consumers are rapidly becoming the ultimate regulators. They are the ones who are going to set the standards and govern our corporations. And that's my firm belief. Exactly like the way you all who are our customers govern who Metricstream ought to be and set the bar for us. That's how you have to think about the power of the customer, especially if you're living in the world of social media and all the connectedness that is there amongst the customers. The collective voice of the customer is extremely powerful. And some of you may recall earlier this year, there was one incident in United Airlines, and it really hurt its brand. You know, one little thing can go wrong, and you suddenly recognize the power of the collective voice of the customer. It's unbelievably powerful now. I was talking to one of the analysts, Chris McLean from Forrester. One of the things which he reminded me, and I found that fascinating statistics, 30 years back, 80% of the enterprise value was tangible assets, plant, machinery, technology, and so forth. And 20% was intangible, which was brand, reputation, and things of that nature. You fast forward to 2017, it's flipped exactly the opposite. 20% of the enterprise value is locked in your tangible assets, and 80% is intangible. So imagine the power of a wrong thing happening, a risk event, or one customer where you did not treat them properly, and the collective voice of how it goes viral or gets connected out, that can take down the entire 80% value that you're talking about here. So the equation has changed and flipped. So I look at it saying, as GRC professionals, we must think about how to bring the value of your customer conversations into your GRC program. And this is an area which I'm thinking fairly deep into, and we want to talk more about it because GRC has to get closer and closer to how you engage with your customers. As you do that, you'll improve your KYC, whether it's know your customer, regardless of which industry it is, but you'll also start to understand regulations that the customers are going to drive for you. Not just from the regulators, not just from your internal boards or HR departments, but the standards that the customers are setting, and how do you govern yourself to those standards. So I just want us to reflect on it and think about it as you look at your own GRC programs, how do you invite your customers to participate in those programs and make them the ultimate regulator. Because if we can be true to our customers, rest will fall in line. And that's my kind of hypothesis in this world which is so connected, and there's such a high collective voice together of the customers. So that was the first theme that's coming pretty clear in all my conversations with customers globally, as well as talking to regulators and others. The second major trend that I'm seeing is what I would call the power of now. And this is an interesting concept that all of us are progressively becoming less and less, patient in some ways. We want instant gratification. You think about it, the world in which we live of Snapchat and Instagram, and everything's got to happen right away. So nobody has the patience for long deployments and long cycle times and, long time to value. So you're looking for bite-sized, modular deployments and rapid time to value. So as GRC professionals and leaders, we have to think about how to bite-size our own journey, how to think about GRC in smaller chunks so that we can actually realize the power of now. And how do you do that? Across your various initiatives. A lot of times people undertake these journeys with very significant ambition, which is all great, but then you have to think about how to make sure that you bite-size it exactly the way the world is moving, in smaller chunks, instant gratification, more modular deployments. So we at Metricstream have taken that approach very seriously at heart, when we designed M7, and you'll hear much more about M7 throughout the next 2 days. And I'll give you an example. One of the recent customers I was talking to in the United States, one of the leading hospital groups, they see over 1 million patients a year. And what was most heartening for me was this was a global audit deployment. and they were able to drive that in a matter of weeks. And some of you, your heads are nodding because you may have spent 6 months, 2 quarters, 3 quarters going through this journey of deployments in the past. So we have to think about in terms of weeks, not months or quarters. That's the challenge I want to throw in front of us, is how do we leverage the power of now and drive to compress and make things more modular in our own thinking here. So that's the second major trend. The third trend that I'm seeing in conversations with everyone is really something that you cannot afford to miss anymore. Like, you can talk to every Silicon Valley entrepreneur, you open the magazines, tech pubs and so forth. What I call the age of AI is here and now, and it's finally arrived. We were talking about AI back in 90s, and it didn't really pan out the way we thought, but I feel finally now AI is here to stay. And the joke or the humor in Silicon Valley is it doesn't matter what the question is or what the problem is, but the answer is AI. And that's kind of become the way people are actually pushing forward on that agenda. Like, right around where we live, there's actually a pizza shop where they actually make the pizza by robots. And you can go to Zoom Pizza in Mountain View, California, and actually enjoy a pizza from them. Or there is a company which is called Molly Smart Kitchen. They've just come out with a very, very sophisticated kitchen where they can actually cook robotically your favorite dishes, and they're trying to make it the iTunes of food, where apparently you could have all the cooking from the different chefs around the world programmed into the robotic arms of this Molly Smart Kitchen. So these are things now beginning to happen as we speak. And so the implications of these are going to be far-flung and pretty deep in how it affects how we live, how we work, how we play. But what does it mean for us as GRC professionals? That's the question I want us to think about. What does the age of AI mean for all of us? How should we think about deep learning, machine learning, AI? And these are not just words for people who are in the programming coding arena. I want us to be reflecting on it as business leaders and professionals, as GRC professionals, to understand the implication of AI to all what we do here. Because it's coming, and it's here. The opportunities are right in front of us. So I myself am looking forward to conversations in the next 2 days with you guys, because I want to learn what is possible, what will matter, and where should AI be most effectively applied. That's going to be very important for us as we look at the next journey for Metricstream from here onwards. So 3 years from now, or 2 years from now, I'd like to see something like an M7I, and again, I'm just making up the acronym here, but an M7I, which we can talk about, which truly has elements of AI baked into the software. But it has happened because you all have given your cumulative thinking and thought behind it. And this is a classic example of what I would call co-innovation, because I'm looking for ideas that we can actually program and bring it into the world of software, into the world of GRC. So this is an opportunity for us to seize. So when you think about all these 3 things, the voice of the customer, very simple concept, but it's worth to be reflective on. How do you tie your customers to your GRC program? How do you think about the power of now and really bite-size your GRC to a different level? We're living, as I said, in the world of tweets and Instagram and Snapchat. That's how you got to think about how to compress the cycle time in smaller chunks. And that's how we do that. And then the age of AI, and this is an area which is a little bit further out, but now is the time to start brainstorming and giving us the ideas on what would matter. And some of these are going to be very simple applications. I call them baby AIs. There'll be a bunch of baby AIs before you have, big AIs doing transformative stuff. But let's use the next 2 days for some ideas around these things. So when I look at Metricstream, we all get inspired by genuine, true high performance. And that's the theme of this conference, GRC for high performers. And most of you probably know the Olympic motto, right? Of faster, higher, stronger. And that is, how we think about performance. we have to move faster on how we deal with risk. You got to move on these risks much more swifter than we have done in the past, so speed is of essence. We have to move the performance higher through GRC. GRC is not just about risk mitigation, it's about raising your performance as of the company. And then the last part of that is we have to become stronger and more resilient through GRC. And resilience is important. We have to think about how to stress test your corporation, your supply chain, your organization, and in the societies we live. That should be our motto. What should govern us. And I know we can't do this all by ourselves. This is something that we have to do collectively. And that's what's really exciting to me, is when I come to London, when I come to the GRC event like this, I can see our collective thinking come together. And that, to me, is very inspiring, and it's very humbling to see the collective kind of co-innovation that comes together. We are united in our shared vision of how we think about making the world a little less risky, more compliant, and better governed. And this is a collective journey that we are embarking on, and I really appreciate the partnership that all of you bring to us, and I see this as a collective journey. So thank you all for leading with GRC, and thank you all for participating in this event. And let's have a great next 2 days of discussions around all the good things around GRC and Metricstream. Thank you.